So the driving lights on this Corvette, this part right in through here, I'm going to lift out some of that value. And you know, I think I'm going to use a slightly harder pencil initially on that. So we'll sharpen that on up. Now, the driving lights in and of themselves, as we look at them, there's kind of a couple of different parts. As I'm looking at it here, there's an outside line, and then there's another circle on the inside, and there's kind of a dot in the middle. So I'm going to take and I'm going to put this little circle on the inside. I'm trying to be careful to make sure the distance between here, the edge, outside edge, and the circle that I'm drawing is the same. And then there's also just another little white dot right in the middle. And so I've accounted for that one, outside circle. Now as we look at it, it's almost like it's divided into quarters on that. And so on one quarter, I'm going to do maybe here, I'm going to make little curves on that part. And then I'm going to make curves that go all the way out through here. So it's a slightly dark value. Now I'm starting to lose this in here a little bit, so I'm going to come back and re-emphasize that one. And I'm going to re-emphasize that outside edge too. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other quarter here, where it comes in through here. Little quarter circles, and then quarter circles here. Start light. You can always go darker. And so it creates kind of a little quarter and a quarter on that one, and it comes in here. I'm going to emphasize this outside portion again so we can see where the dark and the light is. Now this one here, there's that circle. Emphasis over on this one. And so that kind of makes it look like it has a little bit of a reflected light on it. Where we have these little pieces that are kind of little wedges, little white wedges in there, and then some gray value in there as well. Let's go and do the same thing on this side. Let's first lift out some of the value that we had in there, a little bit of the overflow. Always have a little bit too much. It's important to have a pretty sharp pencil on that. You notice it's fairly sharp. Now I want to make this one that other circle on the inside about the same as the other one, same size. And I can make that dark, and then once again I'm going to put that little white circle here. We're going to use the same procedure that we have over here. When we look at this one, there's actually maybe fifths on this one. It's really shaded on the inside, but then there's a white area here, a white area here, white there. So we can do the same thing. It's kind of a formula sort of a deal on that if we want. And so I'm going to put little quarter circles here to make it gray. I'm going to go on the other side and make little circles there. Now, and then I'm going to do one just kind of up here as well. I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to make this area a little bit smaller so you can see it. The idea behind these lights as you try to make them is starting out with some circles. Let me do a little bit of a review on that one. So we have the circle here with lights. I want to photograph. So I have a circle. I have the outside circle with the light. So this is the enlarged version of it. And then inside of it, there's a couple of other smaller circles. And so I'm making a circle where I'm just keeping this distance about the same. And then there's a little dot, a little white dot right in the middle. So we have the little white dot in the middle. We have it's kind of like a bullseye, huh? As it comes around. And then this is our outside edge. Now, as you shade these in, it's kind of like there's little quarter of a circle areas. And so I'm just going to make little quarter of a circle lines right here on this side. And when it's in close to the light itself, it's kind of small. As it goes out wider, it takes up more space. Now, these are not the darkest darks. That's kind of like a little gray sort of a thing. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Little quarter circles like that. And then the lines are a little bit longer. If you use the tip of the pencil, you can create some line value that's going to have some lighter areas that are in there. And so that's the basic idea of creating this thing. Now, as it starts to go here, I need to emphasize this outside line a little more so we can see it. So making it darker, going back in and making that darker. And so that's the technique that you can use to make this lens look like it's a little bit reflective on those. Starting out with the big circle, then putting another circle in there, then a little white dot, and then these covering up a quarter of the whole space with some dark gray, making sure that the lines of that dark gray go in the direction of the circle, so they're circular sorts of things. And that way, it'll make it look like it's a reflected light. The one that I mentioned over here, on this side, it actually has, it doesn't have just the straight quarter divide on it. It has some other pieces going in there as well. And so that's a little bit about drawing that particular part of the vehicle. Let's do, while we're down here, there's some really cool things that are happening with here. Now there's, as I mentioned, there's a little white line that kind of comes down here. Now this is a dark line there. And so if I put value just like right in the middle, like right here, and I'm just going to go horizontal on my shading and leave a white edge on both sides. That will work for me. Okay, now as this comes down here, this kind of loop-de-doops down like that. And so I can get wider here. And so this is a dark medium value. If you want, you can take your squeezy eraser and make a nice sharp edge like that, and then you can use that to emphasize that white line on the outside. Now I will make this white line a little bit bigger, just so it's a little bit more visible on that one, rather than just a thin line. So this is a dark, kind of a dark medium, and then as we come down here, I'm just going to continue that dark medium value as this comes down here. And I really like emphasizing the horizontal marks on this. It works really, really well. Now, on the bottom, on this side, there's actually a pretty dark mark that comes there, and it comes down on this side, and then it kind of goes right up along the edge of those lines that I just made here, is just a little bit darker. And then this part over here is that dark medium again. Okay, so I've left that here. Here's the thing. If you use the tip of your pencil, you can control the boundary really, really well. And if I need to make this area a little bit thinner, I can do that. Thinner meaning that white area. On that, I can control it in a little bit here, and I can control it in there. So using the white of the pencil is kind of a cool thing on that. So this one has kind of a hard dark line right here as it comes across and down. And then also this area, I can emphasize the dark on this one because that's kind of a boundary. This area in here is separate, like that. And so that's being able to draw the little chrome part here. These little areas of reflected light that you see as they come around here, that's what makes them look like they're made out of metal. On being able to have your lights and your darks and those sorts of things. This is a little bit darker right in here, so I'm going to go and put that in. This also, now I'm shading in the direction of the surface still, except I'm using vertical marks instead of horizontal on those. We can do the same thing over here. This has the same sort of a structure. Got to sharpen my pencil first though. Okay, so with the sharpened pencil, I can come in here, and remember I'm going to leave the white around the outside, and I'm going to make this a darker medium value. I'm going to do it in layers though, so the first layer is just more of a lighter value to kind of establish where it all needs to be. And then this is coming down here all the way to the bottom. So I can go over most of it with that little bit of a value. Looks like it comes right to the edge here. So I'm going to put that in there. And there's not as much, there's not a white value on the bottom here, so I can go ahead and fill that in a little bit. Looks like I don't necessarily have one up here either. Oh, I need to draw this part out just a little bit. This comes down here, and then I'd say maybe about right here, and starts to curve under a little bit. That makes this one on this side is a little short. So I'm going to lift out some of that value again as I make that adjustment. That needs to come out more out here with those.
I need these.
You need one of these.
Where, and then where's the paper? Like just a sketch paper?
Oh, should be right next to the, underneath the flag. Okay, so I made an adjustment on this one. I adjusted this part just a little bit wider. And I got to make sure I get that little white part that's right on top. Comes down there. And now let's use the tip of the pencil to show where the white is. And then this is that darker value. Kind of like that. Okay, and then back over to this side. So I'm going to bounce this over here is a darker medium. This one has a little bit of a white line around it, just like the other side did. And then that white line area is right here. I'm going to draw just a boundary so I can see where that is. Make sure that that white line stays as I push this value a little bit darker. Use the tip of the pencil to show where the gray area is. And now I'm going to come back in, and right on the bottom here is the dark area, and then that dark area kind of comes up a little bit right here. And then on the other side does a similar sort of a thing. Right here is slightly curved. And then right here along this edge, I'm going to make this darker so it shows off that white line area. And likewise, I'm going to switch this around so I can use the tip of the pencil here to show where that white line is. Ooh, how cool is that? Okay, I got to come back over here and work on this one here too. That's got to have some values coming up from the bottom. A little bit harder line. And once again, use the tip of the pencil to show that there is a thin white line right there. But I can do that because I have the tip of the pencil right up next to it. And so that creates that thin white line around the outside edge there. And that's kind of a cool deal. Okay. Now there's this dark area that's right underneath here, but we see a little bit more of it here. This is it's fairly dark, but this little part here, it's darker over here than it is over here. So this is like a dark gray. So I'm going to go and put that value of a dark gray right in here. Also, it's going to go a little bit lighter right along this edge as we put in that dark gray. And it's also going to go darker right along where it comes near to that white part right here. There's almost like there's a little lip of white that kind of goes around here. Like that. And then this part over here, it's darker. It's much darker. And so as I'm working my way across here, I want to make sure I get that boundary level right. And so once again, I'm using the tip of the pencil as my control against that area. Down here is darker. I'm just put that in. And see where I have a little bit of a line sticking up here, so I'm going to erase that out a little bit. I'm going to switch pencils just because this pencil is darker. There we go. Use the tip of the pencil to say this part is going right about there. And I'm going to have it go just a little bit lighter right there because it's approaching the tire. The tire is the darkest. And so a little bit of a lighter area right there. Okay, I need to lift out a little bit of a line right there. Now I'm going to flip it so I can define the bottom of this place right here. And so I can use the tip of my pencil to show that bottom edge comes across here. Because it's going to have a cast shadow underneath it. But so I need to make sure that this is a clean line. A clean line. Now this is pretty dark over here, except for that little white part, right? A little bit of a light part right there. Now on your photo reference, you don't see that. So those of you who choose to draw that little lighter area there, just because we're following those rules, you'll probably receive more points than those who don't. All right. And then this area here was a little bit lighter. This is not quite light enough. I'm just going to come and tap in with my eraser. Like that. So when I look at it, here, it's a lighter gray. Kind of like that. That there. This got a little bit crowded on the bottom there. I think I'm going to take this one up just a little bit. just a little bit. So it's more equal with the other side. That makes that look a little bit more even as it comes down over here. I think I'm also going to lift this one up just a little bit more. So that's coming down more like that. And so those look a little bit more balanced. This line here looks a little bit, this needs to go up a little bit here. And thus that makes this part a little bit wider. The reason I'm telling you that is because it's never too late to make changes. And it's probably best to make the changes before you commit them to stone. Okay, back to my harder pencil, because I can control the tip a little bit more. It's not as mushy. Well, that looks better. Okay, I'm going to take a break for just a second.